Today on In Grace, we're in Saudi Arabia, climbing the real Mount Sinai. The story of Exodus is huge. Millions of people freed by mega miracles. And then the granddaddy of all miracles, the Red Sea parts, and Israel is saved, born as a nation. Then God leads them to a series of encampments, bringing them closer and closer to the Promised Land. Before the Promised Land, God wants to bring them to a special place, His mountain in the desert. There, they'll receive the law and set up the tabernacle. Today, we're going to search for and hopefully ascend what is possibly the real Mount Sinai. Before that, we're going to explore a massive split rock, the possible location of another great miracle. We will start today in the town where Jethro lived and find more evidence that this land in modern Saudi Arabia is in fact ancient Midian. Now we're at Jethro's tomb?
Yes.
Is that, or tombs? Tombs of Jethro?
Yeah. So this is Islamic tradition again in this area. They call it the tombs of Jethro. So Jethro and his family. What's interesting though, is that you have Josephus, the Jewish historian, talking about the Midianites living in caves.
Oh.
And so this hillside, which overlooks the oasis, is dotted with caves. It's possible that the Midianites lived in these caves if Josephus had correct information. And later the Nabateans came along and created their tombs. Amazing. After all these years, this has survived.
It is amazing. All right, so we're actually in one of these tombs, a little eerie, a little spooky. Hopefully they've excavated this properly and there's no one still in here.
Yeah, I don't think there is. I mean, you can see looking around the sarcophagus niches, and it's like a two-room tomb with a small room in the back for maybe the patriarch.
And then as you stand here looking out, you can see the oasis.
That's an amazing view. You see the green oasis against the harsh desert. In the background, you see Mount Sinai and the Jebel Allah's range.
Yeah, so from the tomb called the Tombs of Jethro, you see the oasis, which it's called Midian, the town of Midian, the area of Midian, and the well of Moses, still called the well of Moses on their signage today. It's just so many connection points. It's amazing.
Amazing. You could imagine the Midianites living here. And every night when the Israelites were encamped at Mount Sinai, the fire of God's on that mountain. So from this side of the mountain range, you could see Mount Sinai on fire.
No kidding. That must have been spectacular. Or frightening.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to call it frightening. Because that was like thunderings, shakings, lightnings, It was, and certainly they would have still been experiencing that noise from way over here. Earlier, Moses had experienced God here in Midian at a bush that was burning but was not consumed. So a big story in Moses' life before the Exodus was a burning bush.
Yeah.
So what would that have been like as he was walking, and he'd probably seen a lot of these,
There's a lot of brush out here. Yeah. So in the story, he's with Jethro's sheep. So we're on the west side of the mountain range near the traditional home of Jethro.
How far from where we're standing to where Jethro lived?
Less than 20 miles.
Yeah.
So we're very close, like a day's journey.
Certainly would have been where a grazing area.
Oh, in fact, we've met shepherds out here with their goats and sheep.
Interesting.
And so he saw the burning bush, and it says that was his first encounter with God on the mountain. It called it the mountain of God.
Okay.
That's how he identified Mount Sinai. He saw the burning bush on it.
And so that's the first reference we've had to Mount Horeb, Mount Sinai, the mountain of God.
Yes.
There in Exodus. And he sees a bush on fire, not consumed. He takes off his shoes because he's on holy ground. And he has this conversation. He learns God says, I am that I am. A statement of pre-existence and eternity. There's so much to unpack there. But what I think we should do here at this burning bush is see if we can recreate the miracle.
We'll try.
Yeah, let's try it. So you have a lighter. Let's see
Yeah.
if we can set this thing on fire. Now, if it burns and is not consumed,
But take your shoes off.
yeah, I will be taking my shoes off. So let's see what we can do here.
Okay. No, we had some kindling here, but it's kind of windy today. Let's see.
I see you were a Boy Scout.
Trained in the wilderness of Midian. We got smoke. We have some fire. It's catching the kindling on fire.
Okay, folks, we have a burning bush here in the desert. It's being consumed, so it's not a miracle, but check this out. And hopefully we won't burn down the whole desert. On this holy ground, God told Moses that he would free his people. Now, Moses is leading the people back to his holy ground to meet the Lord himself. But here at Rephidim, the last campsite before Mount Sinai, the people again begin to complain. Andrew, this is a really awesome sight. You can see behind us this massive rock, and it's split. And Psalms does talk about the rock that Moses struck was claved or split, and water coming out of the rock. So give us all the details about this.
Well, so this is the area what would be Rephidim, and that was the last camping site before the Israelites camped in front of Mount Sinai. And so if you look at the geography of Midian, this is on the western side of the Mount Sinai range, the Jebel al-Lawz range, which is behind us. And on the eastern side is the big campground with the big plain, the cave of Elijah, the mountain that had the fire on it. And so we're just north of that, but we're still part of these mountain peaks. And so it was in this area that they complained of lack of water. And as you can see, it's very dry. There's no oasis here. And they come here and they tell Moses, like, why have you brought us out into the wilderness to die again? And so they keep complaining about that. And when they get here, God tells Moses, stand by the rock of Horeb. He said to strike the rock. And so when you think about it, there are rocks all over here.
Yeah, there's rocks. And there's a lot of them that are kind of somewhat prominent.
They're small.
And, big. But
yeah, there's the big ones too.
But he says the rock, and so everyone would have known because of the way this one just sticks up.
It's on a hill.
Yeah.
And it sticks out from a far away distance. You can see this claved rock stick, almost like a hand sticking up there. And there's a whole area around here. It's a flat plain. And so you have plenty of space for Israelites to encamp. You have plenty of space outside the encampment for the battle with the Amalekites.
Yeah. So a perfect picture, of course, of Jesus because he's the rock and he was struck and he brings life, water, living water to anyone who will take it freely. Now, you mentioned the Amalekites. So that was another episode that happened here as well. Yeah. And it was maybe because of the water that they came against Israel?
That's possible because that happened after the split rock, Moses struck and the water came out, the rivers of water. So they're probably wondering, like, where's this water coming from into the desert? They follow it into the Israelite encampment, and they were marauders, they were bandits, and they started attacking the Israelites in the rear, it says, and those who are the slower ones in the back.
And that's where we hear the story of Moses standing with his arms raised, and whenever his arms were raised, Israel was winning.
Yeah.
But he was getting tired, and you can only hold up your arms so long. I used to coach a basketball team, and I'd make them run around with the arms up, and it doesn't sound like that's hard, but it is. So then he had Aaron and Hur come alongside and hold his arms up.
Yeah.
Beautiful pictures of how we can support people of faith, people of God. God works in interesting ways. Why were they winning when his arms were raised? It's just it's curious, but all happened right here.
Yeah.
It's amazing to be at these spots. And again, you have this massive rock that's split. You have a mountain that, they could have encamped to the east. All of it fits scripture here in Midian and here in Saudi Arabia. After they left here, they went to the front side of this mountain?
Yeah, the front side, the east side.
So what would that route have been?
So there is a big wadi, which we were actually driving through. A wadi is a dry riverbed, a valley, and this goes all the way around the mountain range to the east side.
How long would that take to walk around?
It's tough to know. There are some little shortcuts. Definitely, in the biblical account, they had about 30 days from the wilderness of Sin, which was a 30-day mark after they left Egypt. So they either had 15 more days or another 30 days to get to the front side. And that includes camping at Rephidim. So it does fit the path that they could have walked. It does fit the chronology.
Well, I'd say let's go there next. Let's go to the front side of Mount Sinai and maybe climb it. I don't know. Do you think I can climb the mountain?
Yeah, it's a tough climb, but let's go do it.
Now, I didn't ask you if we should do it. I said, do you think I should do it?
I think you could do it.
You think so?
Yeah.
Okay. And so with Andrew's resounding vote of confidence, we headed to our final destination in this epic adventure. Driving to what is possibly the holy mountain of God, I was reminded of Exodus 19:18. And Mount Sinai was altogether on a smoke, because the Lord descended upon it in fire. And the smoke thereof ascended as the smoke of a furnace. The whole mount quaked greatly. With great reverence, we approached this awesome place. All right, Andrew, we're at the base of Mount Sinai.
Yes.
And there are some interesting things here at the base that, again, tie into the story of Exodus. You have the golden
calf
altar not far from here, just over this hill. And there's other stuff, right?
Yeah, if you look at the very top of this peak in front of us here, there is actually a cave, the only cave on the mountain. And we know from 1 Kings chapter 19 that Elijah fled here and said he dwelt in a cave one night in Horeb. And so there is a cave up there. Okay. And then you do, again, have the stream bed that comes out of the mountain. Deuteronomy talks about a stream that flowed down from the mountain. And it said Moses ground the golden calf and sprinkled the powder into the stream and made the Israelites drink it. So had been enough water for 1 to 2 million people to drink.
And they were in this area for 11 months.
Yeah.
So they had to have a water source. And if they weren't complaining, they must have had water.
And he mentioned the stream. So there's definitely natural.
Everything's right here at the base. And then I want to get up on this mountain and, see, what else is up there and see if it all fits the criteria, because it looked like there was like a plateau or a bench area where the 70 elders and some others would have been as Moses went higher. So from my understanding, this mountain has it all.
It does. And so I don't know why someone would just reject it outright. I think they need to look at the evidence more. For those who are interested, come out here to Saudi Arabia and check it out.
And it's cool that it has the look of a burnt top.
Yeah, and that's where the name comes from. Jabal Makla, mountain of burnt or burning.
Before climbing Jabal Makla, I wanted Andrew to show me some of the other things nearby that all fit with the second half of the book of Exodus. The people camped here for about a year. In this massive expanse, I could just envision several million people receiving the law, building the tabernacle and the Ark of the Covenant, and becoming God's people. Some have wondered why God chose them. It certainly was not because they would never complain and they were always obedient. In Exodus 32, while Moses was still on the mountain getting the 10 Commandments, a surprising and sad event happens at the mountain's base. So this is another site right next to Jabal Makla, which is Mount Sinai.
Yeah.
And the significance of this?
Well, this site is covered in cow petroglyphs. Now, when the Saudis were showing this site in 1985, they said these look like Egyptian-style cow drawings. And, of course, this, we believe, is associated with the possible golden calf altar site where the children of Israel built an altar and made a cow out of gold.
Wow.
And they danced in front of it in front of Mount Sinai.
And it's almost like just this natural platform here.
Yeah, it's a natural rock outcrop, and you do see all these cows around. Like up there, you do see some rare painted cows. Just in the overhang there, there's 2 there.
Oh, yeah.
And then around the corner, you'll see some carved ones. It's quite interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Look
at that.
This carved onto the the natural patina of this rock are these ancient cow drawings, and the petroglyphs are carved into the rock, etched into the rock.
And then are there other animals?
There are. You have ibex here. And you see some of them are lighter color, like they're different ages.
Sure.
People use this as a billboard.
So who has studied this and what have they concluded?
They actually haven't really studied it.
Huh.
So beside that initial declaration, and then they put a fence around it, they haven't really done any other work.
No kidding.
Again, they're just all over the face of these rocks. See some right there. You see a nice one right here. So in ancient Egypt, there were a number of cow gods, pagan gods. One was the Apis bull god, and the other one was the Hathor goddess. And she was, interesting about that goddess, she was the goddess of music and dance and basically partying and artisans, so those who would make a golden calf.
So the biblical story,
Yeah.
Moses is up on Mount Sinai, the mountain of God, and he's up there a while.
40 days total.
And they're starting to say, well, he must have died or whatever, he's not coming back. Aaron, make us a golden calf. I mean, what a weird thing. Do you think that there were just some people that were into idolatry, that came out of Egypt that were already into the worship of a cow?
Possible. I mean, if you think about it, they were slaves for hundreds of years in Egypt. So they knew about the pagan system. And so, but the strange thing is they're doing this in front of God's presence. The fire on the mountains there still.
Yeah, and, it comes down the first commandment.
They heard the Ten Commandments. This is after God, spoke it. Thou shalt not make any other gods before me.
I know, it just saddens me. And I know that I'm not going to be too hard on them because we do things too, but to hear from God, and they just came through the Red Sea not that long ago. That was a mega miracle, like probably the biggest on scale miracle ever. And here they are just quickly worshiping false deities. And it's just a sad thing. And then people died as a result of this. Moses came down and literally threw down the tablets and broke. We broke the law. Obviously we need a redeemer. And that's the whole point of the law. The whole point of the commandments, they're right, they're good, but we cannot save ourselves. We cannot keep them. And therefore we had to have one come that could keep the law.
It was a schoolmaster that brings us to Christ, right?
Exactly.
Points out our sins, but can't save us from the sins.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. Wow. This is poignant. Incredible. All right, Andrew, here we are at the base of Jebel Makla,
Yes.
which is in the Jebel Allah's range.
Yes, it is.
And you're telling me we're going to hike to that?
We will try. I think we'll make it up there.
Okay, well, who's carrying me is the question.
I think we hired some donkeys.
I could probably make it an eighth of the way without any trouble.
Well, Moses, it says in the Bible, he went up twice in one day, but we don't know how far he got. He might have went halfway and God spoke from above.
We're talking about a guy in his 80s, right?
Yeah.
Oh, my
so I think we could do it.
Okay. So I'm in my early 50s. You're in your late
40s.
Mid 40s. Yeah. So, all right. Well, I know you can do it because you've done this how many times?
7 times to this summit, and then a couple to the other one.
Oh, wow. Okay. Let's go.
Let's go.
Okay, so Andrew, we've gone quite a ways now.
Yeah.
To show the viewers.
Okay, so we've climbed 39 feet, so we're almost there, right?
Yeah, another 5 feet.
Good thing I'm not out of breath either, so that's cool. So where are we going?
We're gonna go up to that black peak.
Oh,
right there.
no. What in the world, Andrew?
Well, our last tour group didn't make it too far.
Wow.
So we just abandoned our vehicle.
I was going to say, if this is what you're using for your tours, you're probably not going to get a whole lot of people to come.
Yeah. We'll have to upgrade our vehicles next time.
Well, I'll tell you this. The vehicles that you're using for this trip, they're
yeah.
top notch. They're beautiful.
You like the refrigerator?
It has a refrigerator. Come on.
Cold drinks in the desert. That's the key.
Yeah.
Near the beginning of our hike, Andrew wanted to show us an interesting ruin. This enclosure is ancient, and some think fit the biblical description of Exodus 20 and 24, where the Bible says that Moses set up an altar at the foot of the mountain after writing down God's laws in the Book of the Covenant. The altar was constructed along with 12 pillars
representing the 12 tribes of Israel. And here is evidence of what looks like an animal enclosure and marble pillars.
At the very bottom of this mountain, you find this animal-shaped corral that has these stones all lined up in an L-shaped pattern where the animals could come in and not get scared and keep going around the corner, so it's kind of a boomerang shape.
They don't see that they're blocked in. They have to turn a corner, so they'll enter. And you say once one goes in,
they all follow.
They all follow.
And in fact, an animal corral design expert in America, she looked at this and said, this is how she would design an animal corral. The whole same layout.
And there was archaeology done here?
Yes, in the late 1990s, the Saudis excavated. And what's interesting, they had found layers of ash on that one end, the northern end of this altar. And so you have evidence of things being burnt there. Now, sadly, the report was very vague and not complete, and so we don't know exactly what type of animals were burnt or what all was found.
It'd be great to re-examine, like if you could find out that these are kosher animals, that would be huge. All right, so it looks like there's some drawings here on this rock.
Yeah, these are ancient petroglyphs. You have people with their hands up, kind of dancing around. You do see some ibex or animal figures. So we're not exactly sure who carved it, but it's at the base of the mountain.
We do know there was an orgy during, the Ten Commandments. They came down the golden calf. So
yeah,
it's curious, isn't it? Okay, so you said we're gonna zigzag up this thing and get
we're gonna go kind of up. There's an animal trail kind of partway up here, and we follow these piles of rocks. So these little piles you see, that's kind of marking the animal trail. The shepherds, even some of us, we start piling up the rocks, so kind of marks the trail. You look for the animal hoof prints and their dung. So you follow the dung trail.
Okay, whatever works. Usually you're following breadcrumbs, but
You follow the donkey and the sheep, or goats probably going up here.
Okay, so we have climbed up higher. You're higher because I can't see the air anymore. The view is spectacular. I am tired, but I don't know. This is still worth it, And I know we're not even, halfway to the halfway, but you got the adventure, the exertion, if you want to do something worthwhile, you got to work for it. So that's what we're doing. Okay, so little progress report.
Yeah.
We've been going about an hour, a little under an hour. You're saying we're going there?
Yeah, we're going on the other side, but we're going to take this route to the left.
Okay.
Slowly making our way up the side of this face of Sinai.
It's been not horrible to come up this far.
Yeah.
Is it going to get steeper as we go?
There's certain parts that will be steeper, for sure.
Okay.
A little slower.
This is very special, though, to be attempting this climb. Appreciate you guiding us.
I always say, why am I doing this when I'm climbing? It's such a long climb, but I love when you're up here, you feel so peaceful.
Yeah.
And just imagining God's presence and fire being up there and what happened here.
All right, so we made it to, you call this the plateau?
Yeah, it's this basin area, like halfway up, this midpoint where there's this flat spot.
Mount Sinai, you read through the scriptures and you're reading through Exodus and Numbers, and even in the New Testament, Paul mentions Mount Sinai in Arabia.
Yeah, Galatians 4:25.
Yeah, in Galatians 1, he says he came to Arabia, probably just like Elijah came to Mount Horeb, to come and learn from God himself. He had grown up as a Pharisee and he's a Jew of the Jews. He missed the main thing in the Old Testament, and that's the picture of the Messiah as we know as Jesus. So here at this place, you think back to Moses and you think back to the thunderings and the lightnings and the ground shaking.
The sound of the trumpets.
I get a sense of that right now. we're at the place
You can
that,
imagine that happening here. And then it says the fire that went to the very heavens. It says in Exodus 19.
I mean, what a sight. And everything seems to fit. And then also the Bible talks about 70 elders, Moses, Aaron, and
Joshua.
They were all probably, they would have come to this spot because this is a great spot to kind of.
Just like we did. We just had a lunch here.
Yeah.
Said they ate with God in Exodus 24, I believe.
Man.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's all fitting. Even the top is blackened. You know, we're not saying that it was blackened by the presence of God, but it is curious that the top of this mountain and these mountains right here are, you know, basalt, or, you know, it looks like it's volcanic, but
even though the Arabic name for the mountain, Jebel Makla, means burning or burnt.
yeah. So I mean, there's so many things that fit here, but we're standing on this mountain that is probably Mount Sinai, also called Horeb, Mount Horeb.
And they called the mountain of God.
Mountain of God. Those are the three biblical names, but we also know it as
Jebel Makla, the modern Arabic name for it.
And then also Jebel
Alaz,
Alaz, which is kind of the range.
And
Alaz means the
mountain of almonds.
Almonds. So why would that be the name of this range? Do you know?
Well, you know, there are groves of wild almond trees growing on this mountain range. And what's really interesting is the staff of Aaron was made from an almond branch.
Yeah.
Remember, they rebelling again, and so Moses said, okay, we'll see who should be the chosen or the leader, and Aaron's rod budded and almond blossoms.
Wow.
So it was from an almond tree. And also in the sanctuary service, you have the almond motifs in like the menorah.
Yep.
The 7-branch candlestick, you have almond buds and blossoms used in the gold candlestick.
It's just like...
So that stuff comes from the mountain.
Unbelievable. So this is really amazing. As you've been doing tours and as you come here, maybe for the first time, what did it feel like to you?
There's a peace here. Usually, like, you climb a mountain, you're just all about the climb.
Mm-hmm.
Here, you get there, you get to like this place, or mainly the summit. You just feel like, wow, imagine like God's presence was here at the very top. You could almost feel it. The same thing that Moses being here felt.
Yeah. To be able to climb it, it's physically exerting. But to think Moses was 80 at least, he climbed it a bunch of times.
Yeah.
And then the elders were old, right?
70 elderly.
Yeah, elderly. We never would have found anything, you know, in these areas, but having a guide like you's been great. So you're saying we're going up there. Is that what you're trying to say?
That's our plan. You know, it's a little afternoon. Our goal is to get up there by 2.
Okay.
Gives us an hour and a half to explore the summit.
All right.
And then come on down by 3.
All right.
So.
Nice.
Wow, look at the mountain.
What?
There is the peak.
Oh, that is so cool. Look at that.
The blackened peak of Mount Sinai.
That is so unusual.
It just goes all the way over. See it? 3 peaks have it.
Okay. And that's the peak
that we're going up today.
That we're going to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow, we've actually made it.
Andrew, you said just another...
Almost there.
Almost there, another 500. Just over the next peak.
Here it is.
Yeah, here we go. Made it to the top, at least the south peak.
Yeah, we're here.
Jebel Makla. And this was one of the most physically challenging things I've done for a long time.
Tough climb.
Yeah, you know, but hey, we made it. It's worth it. Absolutely worth it, because we're standing in the place where God's presence was, and the glory of God, the fire of God, right, was right here.
It says it was like a fire ascending to the very heavens. And so you think that would be an amazing sight if you're camped out here like the Israelites or the Midianites to the west. In Al-Bada, you could see this mountain on fire.
And certainly, you know, the shaking, the thundering, the lightning, you know, it must have been quite a sight, and also unsettling a little bit, especially for people who have no idea what's going on.
I'm remembering the verse where they say, Moses, you speak to us. Do not let God talk to us, or we'll die. And so then they ran back to their tents. Mm-hmm. It must have been an awesome display of power up here.
You don't feel like Moses would have come up to the peak. He would have come up into the cloud What do you feel about that? Where would he have received the 10 Commandments?
The Bible's unclear. It just says God called him further up.
Mm-hmm.
And so it doesn't say the summit. We don't know how far down the cloud covered the mountain. But he was close enough that it said in the Hebrews that he feared for his life.
God instructed them to build a tabernacle.
Mm-hmm.
And the tabernacle later would become the temple. And it had certain parts of that was very, very holy at the very center. So how does that apply to this mountain?
Yeah, what's very interesting, if you look at the layout of this mountain to where the encampment would be. So here we are on this southern ridge of Jebel Makla. If you start here, if you go eastward, west to east, just like the tabernacle layout, you have this most holy site on the very top where only Moses was allowed to go up and talk to God. And in the tabernacle, you had a most holy room, this square room where only the high priest would go in once a year. And then from there, moving eastward, you'd go to the holy place where the priests were allowed. And same thing here, you have, going eastward, you have a plateau where they had the 70 elders, Aaron, Joshua, they came up and ate with God. You had the table of showbread there in the tabernacle. And then moving further out, you come to the courtyard where they have the sacrificial system, where they have the altar, burnt offering, and the laver. At the base of this mountain, you have the stream bed going out. And past that, you have an altar site, we believe is the altar of Moses.
Wow.
And then you go further out is the encampment, just like you have in the layout of the sanctuary service. So it's a perfect match. You think of the layout of the mountain to the tabernacle itself.
And the direction, it's another piece of the puzzle. Everything seems to fit right here to this being the place. Even the direction of the top of the mountain all the way down, and having that bench, that plateau where multiple people could sit and observe, and then you have lots of room in the plain for several million people.
Yeah.
So again, all of the puzzle pieces fit together, but this being the very center of God's holiness. And I still feel like when we're standing on Mount Sinai, you sense God's holiness, his reverence, his wrath too against sin. It all culminates here because Moses is taking down these 2 tablets that God wrote. I mean, a lot of the Bible, all of the Bible, God breathed through men and moved them along in what to write. But God wrote here and on the wall in Babylon. It's a rare thing when God writes. And so these tablets of the commandments of God, and those are the basic laws. And then they had a lot of other laws for the nation of Israel. Mm-hmm. But these are still things that are important for us today. These are basic things that almost every society observes. You don't steal, you don't lie, you don't kill. And this is where
it all started.
The law comes from.
It was given here, the voice of God. First, he verbally gave it, then he wrote it on stone, showing how permanent it is.
Yeah. This has been one of the big privileges of my life, Andrew, to stand here. And I would never have come here if it weren't for you. Thank you so much.
I'm glad to help you guys out.
This has been quite an adventure. We've seen evidence of Israel in Egypt, a logical route to a dead end on a beach that could hold several million freed slaves, a deep body of water with a natural walkable slope, several oases in Saudi Arabia that fit the biblical descriptions of Israel's camps, archaeological evidence for Jethro and the Midians, a split rock, altars, a large plain, and a mountain that fits all the Bible's criteria. While I'm not absolutely positive that we're at the real Mount Sinai, everything seems to fit. But I am positive about something. God is real. He's powerful and he's holy.